All right, we are live. We have David Fite, one of the funniest people in the Libertarian Party, in my opinion. No offense, Dave Smith, but he always makes me laugh. So super excited about it. We've got his YouTube channel pinned in the description, as well as his Twitter. I strongly recommend you follow him, unless you don't have Twitter, and then don't get it, because it's a horrifying place that makes everyone miserable.
Agreed.
That said, David, why don't you introduce yourself? Like, let's talk about you.
Okay. I'm David. So I got I'm a libertarian. That's how I identify. I identify as a libertarian. My pronouns are shall not be infringed, and I support recreational rocket launchers and ending the Fed. So
that's my kind of person right there. Recreational rocket launchers. That's awesome.
That was my first like really fun, like great moment as an like official libertarian, like in the party. I was running for New York City public advocate.
Okay.
And I was running in a libertarian primary. So I was debating a very good friend of mine named Devin Balkine, who was the Brooklyn borough chair at the time. Still a good friend of mine. It was a very healthy race. He ended up beating me because, and he should have. He's like 7 years older than me, has already run for this before, like should have won this race. But in a debate, somebody asked the question of like, how do we market the libertarian like Second Amendment stance to people in New York City? Because clearly we don't want like, just bazookas in the streets, right? There's a limit to where we take the Second Amendment. And like he prefaced this with that kind of like super soft take on the Second Amendment. And Devin answered first, and he basically just said, we don't need to talk about it in New York City, which, fundamentally, I kind of agree with his answer on like a pragmatic campaign stance. But he took that stance. So, he kind of pushed me into the opposite one, and I had no problem taking it. And I was like, listen, I agree that if, we don't need to put it on our campaign literature or anything like that. There's a lot more pressing matters in New York City where we have a lot more support on. But if somebody asks me my stance on the Second Amendment, it's fucking recreational rocket launchers, and I'm not going to back down on that. And I got like a round of applause from the room, and I was just like, fuck yeah.
That's awesome. That is awesome. That's really funny. I'm going to definitely steal that line, by the way.
Please do.
I will give you credit, but I'm stealing it. Okay, we have to tackle something. This has, from the first video I watched that you were in, I got it. I got to go here, man. We have to go here. Everyone needs to know. Why do you have the golden EIB microphone? Are you Libertarian Rush Limbaugh? What is happening?
It was the best one that I could find for the money. For the longest time I had.
So it comes down to I'm cheap.
Yes.
Okay.
This is it, and it looks kind of cool, but
it does look cool.
I am very cheap. The arm and the microphone, and I have my entire setup, which can also fit like in a very small portion of my suitcase and travels with me all over the place. Cost me like $110 for like the webcam and the mic and the arm and everything else. Yeah, I went. It was with actually the first stimulus check. Went to Staples and
But you bought your stuff at Staples?
I did.
Oh, you guys do things different in New York.
So I refuse, because it was still like kind of early on in the pandemic shit, and everyone was going nuts about everything. I refused to purchase this shit online. I was like, no, I'm going to go to a store.
Yeah.
Swipe my fucking debit card. And like, I'm not going to buy this from Amazon, especially not from Amazon.
I'm going to see people.
Fuck Amazon.
Yeah, like, I agree with you on the Amazon thing, except for, man, they're so convenient. You just like, oh, I need this thing, and it's on its way. you know?
So I never really liked shopping online that much, so I never got in the habit. And I've can proudly say I have never spent any of my money on Amazon.com.
Okay, well, you may be the only person that has internet access on Earth that buys things you can say that. So good for you on that.
Yeah. I'm too impatient. Like I want to go and
you want to have it in your hand right away. I get that. I get that. My thing here's why I like Amazon. Mainly I like the internet, but I like Amazon for one reason, and that is I can buy. Okay, so I own chickens and pigs, right? You bought the golden EIB microphone there, the junior model, but I like it. So we got our when the pandemic first started and they sent out that first round of stimulus money. I bought chickens and pigs. Like that's what I did. You know what I mean? Like I was like, well, I can eat these things eventually. You know what I mean? So I like the Bitcoin thing. Don't get me wrong, but I'm like, I can't eat a Bitcoin. I can't even see a Bitcoin, but I can eat a pig. Yeah. So anyway, that said, I liked Amazon because there's some things that you can get even from small businesses that you would never have an opportunity to walk into. They're just cross country. There's no way you're going to do that. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it centralizes them to other people outside. So I like that about them. I will give them credit on that.
Yeah, they provide a very crucial and wonderful service. They just do it in a very icky way, and the dude at the top of the company
he said icky. That's funny.
I fully believe that like Jeff Bezos is actually a supervillain.
I'm pretty sure he is definitely working on some kind of world-ending weapon. We just don't know about it.
Yeah,
I'm kind of hoping that Elon Musk is like Batman, and he's on the other side going, "No, man," you know.
Yeah, it's literally Batman and Lex Luthor. Like,
yeah, and Bezos is bald, so it works out perfectly.
Have you seen that video of him trying out those robot arms?
I have
at some like convention.
No, but that's creepy.
He has these he's testing out this like really big robot arm thing that, you know, he has his arms and gloves and it's moving and doing what he's doing, and he like fist bumps somebody and with the big robot arm, and it's super cool, whatever. I mean, it's actually kind of lame in my opinion because it's technology we've had it for a decade now.
We had that, but it was a little plastic toy that you boxed each other.
Right.
I don't remember what that was called, but we had that.
But yeah, so he like fist bumps the dude, and then he just like throws his hands up and gives like the most evil, just like ah.
Oh, that's creepy.
And I'm like, bro, this is 2 Dr. Octopus and not like it's not cool.
That's creepy. All right. So I asked Reed last night to get his opinion, and I want to get yours too. This is a question that I think it's just going to be my first and primary question for all libertarians or anarchists that I'm able to speak with. Why do people hate or fear freedom?
I think people. I think people fear freedom because it gives them an element of responsibility. But I also would challenge that I don't think they fear freedom. I think what they do is they love a different kind of freedom, and that is freedom of responsibility and freedom of consequence and freedom from, you know, hardship. And, you know, you especially hear this out of the left's narrative right now. You know, they talk about the way they talk about rights, like, you know, the right to healthcare, the right to work, the right to housing. You have the right to live a good life without doing anything for it. And so we have this misguided version of freedom. And so I think most of them aren't aware that they're afraid of freedom. I think.
Okay. So see, I think, and this is my perspective, I agree with your assessment there that it's a fear of consequences and responsibility, because I think people, generally speaking, think they want freedom. They don't really, because they're afraid. But that's because freedom is dangerous.
Yeah.
Like, just to be perfectly on and blunt, freedom is dangerous, and there's no way around that. You premised it. You went a little different. You said the left, and so I would have thought that when you made your observation there, that you would be talking more about the right, so to speak, because they're the ones that are like, well, yeah, we like freedom, we like the Second Amendment, but you don't really need a rocket launcher, do you? It's like, well, what if your neighbor had a rocket launcher? You wouldn't even know unless he shot it at your house, which is a possibility, I suppose, but not likely. I mean,
just don't be somebody who deserves a rocket launcher shot at your house.
Exactly. Don't be that person, and you don't have to worry.
Yeah, I think it's definitely present in both wings of American politics almost equally.
Yeah,
I brought up the left just because I think they verbalize it so much clearer with those phrases that I mentioned of like this right to just be happy even without doing anything for it.
Yeah, my ideology on that, and I agree with your assessment there. My thinking is that the left, I would have put them in the category of hate freedom, and not their own. Obviously, they think they have rights to all kinds of things that are nonsensical, like healthcare. Like, if I drop you in the middle of the forest and you break your shit, like, what rights do you have now, dummy? Like, you better figure it out. You know what I mean? But I think they hate your freedom. They're over there going, well, I mean, if you can do that, that oppresses me. And it's like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't affect you. But they think that it does. You know what I mean? So I don't know if you had any thoughts on that, of why maybe it's not a fear or hate of freedom. It's, why are some people so easily swayed to authoritarianism? That it's my way, or yeah, you're just doing it wrong. And if you disagree, it's because you're racist, obviously.
Right. So I definitely, I completely agree with what you said, and I think it really, I'll kind of bring it back to what I said earlier a little bit. I think they're just mistaken, because where they see freedom as is, they see oppression as, anti-freedom, not as just a fucking existent law of nature that like somebody is going to be above, like the hierarchy is natural, right? They see hierarchy as the opposite of freedom. And I mean, a lot of people are just delusional. It's not, I don't think it's necessarily, a lot of people ascribe malice to the left, that, they're trying to like tear down our freedoms and our rights. And I really don't believe that the majority of the people on the left are like that. I think the majority of them think that they're fighting for freedom and rights and equality and doing the right thing. They fully believe it to their core. And I've thankfully gotten to talk to hundreds of those people over the last 2 years and teach them why the AOC Bernie Sanders answer,
why they're wrong.
Answer. Right. But not that their like core foundation, like their assessment of the issue is right. Their assessment of the people that caused the problem in most cases is right, because we can talk about whether or not it's private corporations or big government that have caused most of the problem in America, but the answer is both, right?
Both.
It's the joining and the sleeping with each other of the two that's the problem. And once you show somebody that correlation, that it's them working together, it's not our solution or your solution, it's like our solution to fuck up the authoritarian oligarchy and like move towards decentralized freedom. Most people can be swayed if you show them the objective fact of the government is evil.
Okay.
Where most of them are just, you're not taught that in school, right? You're not
Right.
taught
You're right. Yeah.
that anywhere. So to be ignorant of that is pretty natural for most
Well, no,
of us.
actually, I would say if anything in school now, they're actively engaged in making sure you don't think about stuff. They're like, no, just take the test. Like, just, don't. And if you question, they're like, what are you doing, man? Like, no thinking. That's not allowed.
Yeah, see, I was
I'm glad you
homeschooled,
brought
so
up
I'm
the
thankful.
corporation thing. Oh, well, good, man. That's awesome. I just came up in a small town. So, and it was a lot different, like, no union or any of that nonsense where I went to school. You would get fired. If you pulled any of the crap they're pulling now, they'd be like, well, hope you enjoyed being a teacher. You're not one now. I'm glad you brought up the corporation and government thing, because my father, he's since deceased, but he used to say that government is married to the people and corporations are married to the people. The problem is they're having an affair and we're not invited.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I didn't understand that when I was younger, obviously, but now I look at it and I'm like, holy crap, like I get it now. You know what I mean? So on that note, what do you think about the term crony capitalism?
I use it quite often.
Okay, why?
Explain
yourself.
So, first of all, I have always loved the word crony, just in general. Even before
it is a fun word.
Well, right. It's a fun word, and I loved using it before I even knew what it meant necessarily. But I think that it's important to differentiate between crony capitalism and the actual economic system that is capitalism, because too many people identify capitalism as what's wrong. And actually, I have a whole other speech I could give on how I actually view capitalism, because I don't think that it's an economic system necessarily either. I think it's a law of nature. Yeah. Capitalism is trading. Like, if you ever went to lunch, or if you
have that thing and I want that thing,
right? And I have a thing that you want, and then we trade for those two things.
I think you did a video at one point where I think you said something about if you traded a pudding for a banana, that's capitalism. It's just built in genetically into our souls.
Right.
Like, this is how things work.
Right. And if you've ever brought cupcakes for the whole class, that's communism.
Fair enough. Yeah. No, I agree. I mean,
and it's just like, they're both laws of nature.
I hate the term. I love both words individually. I hate the term. And the reason I hate the term isn't because of the term. It's because of the way it gets used. Where you'll see, Fox News and that kind of nonsense will talk about it like, oh, we don't have capitalism or free trade. We have crony capitalism. And I'm like, you mean socialism? That's what you mean, right? That's what we have. Like, that's what's happening. Corporations work directly with government. They make the rules, like, to the point they write the laws. It's like, okay, this is the easiest way for me to put it. If you care about small businesses, then you should be pretty suspect about the government screaming about $15 an hour and Walmart and Amazon clapping. You should be pretty suspect. Not to mention, my town has a couple of Walmarts, right? And you go into Walmart now, and I'm not even kidding. There are 2 checkout lines that require people to check your groceries. Everything else is completely self-checkout. There's one person overseas, like, I'm like, yeah, how's that $15 an hour working out? Like, now there's one of you,
Yeah, but I mean, that guy's making $15 an hour, so it's a better world.
Good for him. He's still poor.
Right.
I don't like that term living wage, because that doesn't mean anything. That's ridiculous. Where I live, I could make $15 an hour and I could survive, and even probably have a beer once in a while or whatever, right? You live, I believe, in New York, if you make $15 an hour, you're going to starve to death, bro, and you're going to live in a box. Like,
that actually is the minimum wage in New York City already.
Okay, that's pretty awful. But that's not even close to living wage in New York City.
Not quite. I mean, it's right about it. It's I didn't hate it happening. Let me say that if there's gonna be a minimum wage, like if we're gonna have a system like this and it's going to fuck up everything and it's going to exist anyway, for it to be that number in the city of New York, I am okay with, because it actually matches the cost of living fairly accurately. Upstate minimum wage is like $11 an hour, which is also you can afford like 1-bedroom apartment.
So you're thinking localized.
I think that if we're gonna have it at all, which I think we shouldn't, but if we are, then some cities maybe like doing it, then I'm if it's gonna be a city where you need to make 60 grand a year just to fucking eat and sleep
then you should probably move.
You should move, yes, but also something
you should go, I'm not paying rent right now, I'm gonna move. Like,
oh my gosh, that's why I'm upstate right now.
Yeah,
but I also haven't made minimum wage since I was 17 years old.
I don't understand. Like, I never made minimum wage ever, not one time in my life. Like, it's never happened. It's maybe that's just the person and opportunity, whatever. But my opportunity was working graveyards, washing trucks, and then going to school in the morning. So yeah, whatever. But I didn't make minimum wage, and I had more money than all my friends. So there's that.
There you go.
So that's fun to me, because I keep seeing these people that say just crazy things like, oh, well, if we didn't have a minimum wage, then corporations would pay their employees 30 cents an hour. And I'm like, on what planet do you live? Because that's not true. You want to know how I know it's not true? No one had worked for that. They'd be like, bite me, I'm out. That corporation would have no money.
Mm-hmm.
Or no employees, I mean, which in turn would mean they have no money. So it's I look at the minimum wage that I think if you abolish the minimum wage, I think you would see a lot of very interesting things happen. I think that low skill workers would be able to get work, which is good, get some experience. And I think higher skill workers would be people somewhere in the middle would have a better chance at getting that higher skilled job and being able to grow themselves, because that employer doesn't want to pay, $250,000 a year if they can pay half, obviously. I mean, why would you? And so we'll touch this, and I want to get your opinion. I have heard my entire life, and I'm fairly certain now that I know how young Reed is, that you're quite a bit younger than me as well. But I've always heard women make 73 cents on the dollar. And I go, that's ridiculous, because I would only hire women. Why wouldn't I want to keep that other 27 cents? What's wrong with you? So go. What are your thoughts?
Ooh, okay. We're gonna have this on record. The wage gap is a myth, but it's based off of a statistic that is true. But there's a reason for it, and it's a much deeper reason than this glossed over bullshit idea that like I'm sitting next to or I'm flipping burgers and the girl flipping burgers next to me is making 73 cents an hour less. Like, that's just not true.
She makes $7.30 and you make 10.
Yeah, no, that's not a thing. But there are a couple of ways that math was skewed, or not necessarily skewed, but just realities of nature, which is that women statistically take lower paying career paths like teaching. That they very much
can indoctrinate your children.
They
Just
very
kidding.
much dominate that industry because that's just something. This isn't sexist at all. Like, it's something that women are better at, in my opinion.
They are better at
teaching,
it.
especially
My
younger
best
children.
teachers were female, except my shop teacher.
Yeah, all of my favorite teachers were females. Better at it. They do that, and we don't pay them enough. In that whole industry, I don't think gets paid quite enough.
We would disagree
So
on that one.
we have to take that kind of.
Next time. We'll conversate about that next time.
Fair enough. And so there's definitely that kind of stuff to be taken into consideration. Then there's also just some psychological differences between the genders that do actually make it to where sometimes you're sitting next to somebody that's doing the exact same job and they're making less, and that it is statistically proven that women ask for a raise less. Women don't argue during the hiring process on the salary
wage
nearly as much.
Mm-hmm.
That's a statistical fact, and that's not necessarily the patriarchy.
Of course it is. What do you mean it's not? That's everything.
I think there's a piece of it that is, though, because it's a fear-based, in my opinion, it's a fear-based psychology for them. Because 10 years ago, if a woman went and said, I think I deserve to be paid as much as Bob, they would have there was a likelihood that they would just get laughed out of the office, and
True.
That is something that was okay.
But that wasn't 10 years ago. That was like 30 years ago.
Okay, yeah, you're right. My random number throwing out was a little of a low ball there. I agree.
Just because you're young, I get it.
But that existed, and so that was society for a while. I think that culture is almost completely gone. I think that there are definitely still plenty of sexists in high power, in different like not even high power, just like that middle management, the people that make that decision. I have worked for very sexist or very racist people a lot of times in my life that would hire a woman for less money just because he doesn't think that she could sell as well, because she's not going to be as aggressive, or I've heard.
I mean, he's not necessarily wrong in that argument.
He's wrong if he's just basing that off of the gender, because I've gotten my ass kicked by other women. I have gotten my ass kicked by other women in my offices in sales. Like
I've just never been in a position where as an employee, which granted I really haven't had that many jobs, where the jobs that I did have, no, a woman was not going to be at the same level. And that's because of a physical requirement that was necessary. So cool. That was fun. I always like to put people in weird positions where they're like, I don't know what to do here. I do agree with you, though, that I think it's getting a lot better. In fact, there's statistically now, women graduate college at a much higher rate than men, and they actually enter the job force with the college degree at a higher rate of pay than men. So that tide is changing. Yep. I don't know that that's for the better, but it's changing. This was actually we had originally discussed talking the difference between libertarianism and anarchism, but whatever. You just got to flow with things sometimes. Yeah. But let's do it. You're a libertarian. I was from 2004. I have my own reasons. We could discuss that more in private than in public, but you believe I'm assuming, I don't know, but libertarians believe that there is a path where government is useful to assist in this nightmare that we have and get us out of it. But it's basically just bring it down to scale, make it as small as possible. I have recently shifted to a point where I'm more like Reed, where I have no confidence in government, and I have less confidence in government than I have in people, but I basically have no confidence in America at this point. I think it's coming apart, and I don't know. So I'm like over here thinking, well, how about I just do me and you all kill each other? I don't care, whatever. So explain yourself.
So I'll definitely say that Reed and he's a little bit ahead of me on the journey, but we're traveling down a similar path of ideology. I'm definitely losing faith in everything, literally everything. But what I believe right now is that there is a way to do this without just burning it down from like day one necessarily.
No, I disagree.
I think there is a path to victory. Whether or not it's a legitimate path, whether or not it's going to work, we can have that argument. I'll lose that argument probably. But I think that there is something that we can be doing as the Libertarian Party to try to scale down government pragmatically. Until we start the other option, that's what I'm going to be doing. You know?
Okay. I like your thinking that we can scale government down. Here's my issue, and this is this last election cycle is what just did it, where I was like, I don't care anymore, like whatever, you know what I mean? The Libertarian put me in a position. I voted for Trump, and mainly because he just pissed everyone off, and I'm like, well, whatever, like that's fun. And because he was such a polarizing figure, it slowed government down. That's one thing that I did notice. That Reed had asked me on our first conversation about what did Trump do good, and I said nothing. But then I thought about it, and I'm like, that's not true. There were some things that he did that they helped. He slowed government down because they couldn't do anything that would make Trump look like he was good at anything. So no, So the Democrats did everything in their power. I mean, they impeached a dude twice, ineffectively, but they tried. And he got the media, and I guess the deep state, if you want to call it that, to rear their actual teeth. Like, no, you're not allowed to. Whatever happened here, we cannot allow. But my thinking is the Libertarians lost me with Joe Jorgensen. I was like, how did we go? Reed and Dave Smith both have stated on Twitter before that you could have had Ron Paul, but you chose Mitt Romney and John McCain. And they're not wrong. Like, what's wrong with you?
Right.
But then we chose Joe Jorgensen, who tweets the most ridiculous things that just irritate people. Like, what? Why? What happened? Okay, you explain it. You're still a Libertarian.
Yeah. So first of all, when those tweets came out, and let's talk about what, like, this on a realistic standpoint. Like, we're talking about like a dozen tweets, right? From a national campaign that lasted almost a year and a half. We're talking about like a dozen tweets. Mm-hmm. So when you want to compare that to like John McCain being one of the most prolific war criminals in the country's history
ever,
I think that I
would say global history.
Yeah, sure, I'm cool with that. I think that we're talking about a very different level of like terrible. I think right. Joe Jorgensen, she wasn't great. I'm not gonna like defend her as the best candidate. I think Gary Johnson was better than her in a lot of ways. I think she was better than Gary Johnson in a lot of ways. I think they both kind of suck in a lot of ways. I would have much rather have had Justin Amash. I would have much rather have had I would have much rather have had Ken Armstrong. Yes. I would have much rather have had Kim Ruff. There were other candidates in there. Most of them dropped out before the end that I would have loved to have seen in that role. They lost. The party decided what they decided.
I'm going to be honest. I would have rather had Spike at the top of the ticket.
Yeah, I mean, at the convention, no. Now, yes.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
When I met Spike actually, and I didn't even realize it. I've had a conversation with him. Then he went on to become our VP candidate. And then like 2 months after then, I realized that was the dude that I had a conversation with.
I
he had like no charisma until he got on that line that I saw. Like,
which is weird. It's creepy when people are like that to me.
Yeah, and then he just like boom out of nowhere. And I have a bunch of friends that have been friends with him for years, and apparently that really is him. And I just met him on like an off day, and he didn't like really have a lot of exposure necessarily. But
je ne sais quoi. That's another real fun term.
But apparently that really has been him for quite some time, and I just we didn't know it. And now I've gotten to know him through social media at least, and he's fucking awesome, and his following is fucking awesome.
He is hilarious.
Yeah, so great.
I almost feel like if you would have just turned over the Twitter account to Spike, it would have been a whole nother ball game. But here's my thing. This is what really did it. It's not so much the tweets necessarily. It's that I'm with Dave Smith in this argument that from March of last year, the only thing the Libertarian Party should have been screaming to the rafters is these lockdowns are awful, garbage, unconstitutional, nonsense. Like, what is wrong with you people? Why are you putting up with this? You know, and they didn't. And LP National was like, well, and I'm like, what is happening?
I'm with you. So when it started, I was on sort of a pragmatic approach to the virus, you know, like I definitely bought into a little bit of the fear in the early days. And so, you know, when they said 2 weeks to flatten the curve, right? I was like, cool. That sounds
to flatten the curve 364 days ago.
Right. When they said that, I was definitely in the same camp where I was like, you know what, that makes sense. You know, if we all just stay home, not mandated, but like strongly suggested, voluntary, like, but it would work best if it was everybody. So like, let's like really encourage this, because like if we could just get the whole country to stay home for 2 weeks, we could have actually have curbed this. The thing is, we didn't do that. We half-assed everything that we did to allow just enough to keep the virus going forever. Like, that's what we've been doing. So if we had actually done, like, if we had gone draconian and done like a like South Korea style lockdown for 2 weeks, we'd be done by now. Like, that even would have, like, scientifically would have been better than what we did, but I would have never supported that, obviously. But I was cool with the idea of
the fact that you just said that on the internet is going to haunt you later in life.
I don't mind admitting that sometimes authoritarianism solves problems quicker.
It's not the right way to do it.
Agreed. Yeah. But quicker. That's definitely a thing.
Well, actually, I mean, China just welded people in their house, and look, they got that thing under control. People go, how do they only have these many cases? And I'm like, because they welded people in their house.
Right. And then like, you talk about the unemployment rate in China. It's like it's zero. It's zero.
You work, man, one way or another.
Or you die. Like,
you either work or you're a slave or you die. There ain't no in between.
Yeah, when you have a 3% unemployment rate and you don't mind killing 3% of your population, you don't have an unemployment rate.
Yeah, it was when the virus was going and all the nations were posting their COVID positives or whatever. I don't remember who it was, but there was something on Twitter that would once in a while pop up and say like the date or whatever, and it'd be like April 20th. North Korea, COVID-19, patient 1. April 21st, patient 0. It's like, you get the joke, right? It's not spreading because they don't allow it. You know what I mean?
It's the strategy.
It's a strategy. You're right. Man, I don't even know where I was going. This kind of went its own direction.
It definitely did. So I don't know if I never actually worked for the campaign, so so I can't actually get in trouble for saying this, and I won't say any names. But what I will tell you is that the person that sent the tweet that you're thinking of currently controls Spike Cohen's Twitter.
Well, they should be fired.
They do an amazing job at what they do.
They do. I just don't understand that one. I don't understand where they thought that was a good idea.
I agree that it was a judgment error. But I'm also
I mean, I don't care. Like, fine, it's over. It's game, set, match. But
that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at.
I guess that was my last straw. Because it went from, you're not even talking about the things that we should be talking about. You know, as libertarians, we should be talking about these lockdowns. We should be screaming it to the high heavens. And you're not talking about that stuff. And now this is what is happening, you know? Yeah. And so I just went, okay, I'm done. Because the only party I had any confidence in is just like lost me right there. Now, I will say this, and I said this to Reed, and I'll say it to you as well. The Libertarian Party is the only current party in my head that stands a snowball's chance in hell of turning things around. But they're going to need to get Republicans and Democrats, the ones that are like on the edges, that are like, I don't know what's happening. They're going to need to figure out how to suck them all in together. And that's going to be very difficult because the Libertarian Party cannot get along. Because we have 1,575 caucuses and nobody knows what's happening.
So I completely agree with you. I completely agree. And what I'll say about Joe Jorgensen, and first of all, like, you'll be hard pressed to find anybody in the party that would disagree with you when you say Joe Jorgensen ran a bad campaign. I know. I feel like it's a very, to leave the party for her is.
I didn't leave it for her. I left it more because of the COVID response. That tweet was the straw that broke the camel's back.
Okay, that makes more sense. That's fair. I do definitely agree that we should have been talking about that. And I think for me personally, that's why we have these caucuses, is because the point of caucuses within a party is not for one caucus to be yelling at the other caucus for what they're not messaging correctly. The point is for one caucus to have the messaging that they think is correct and to be out there messaging it. The Mises caucus was talking about the lockdowns all year. If they had spent more of their energy actually just messaging the lockdowns themselves, instead of getting into Twitter debates with the LP National account about whether or not they should be talking about the lockdowns, we would have a much stronger party right now. And I don't mean to throw them under the bus, because I can say the same thing about the rest of the party.
He's talking to you, Dave. He's talking to you.
But that's the thing. Like, Dave has turned that around a little bit. You know, he's changed his messaging a little bit this year, and I love to see that. And I would love to see more of the Mises caucus do that. And I'd love to see more of the Pragmatist caucus do that. You know, I would love to see people like Andy Craig get off of Twitter a little bit more. But again,
that would, you know, if Andy would get off Twitter and get on the job, I think things would change a lot.
So the one thing I will say, and even Dave Smith will agree with me on this one, is that Andy Craig is one of the few or one of the Lulberts or the loser brigade or whatever the fuck you want to call that group of people. He's one of the ones you can't necessarily say that about, because he busts his fucking ass. And
you can't dispense with him because he works.
Like, and then somehow still has enough time to cause so much shit on Twitter.
So the other day, not yesterday, the day before, I had my very first version of what I would call a viral tweet. And I mean viral to me, right? That's the biggest tweet I've had, honestly. Several hundred, whatever. Nothing compared to your level. So leave me alone on this one. I'm just getting started. Won't be long, man. You give me time.
Yeah.
But I said that it was time for anarchists and libertarians to come together and buy a city. I meant to say buy or build, but I said buy.
I'm with it.
That cost caused way more blowback than I thought it would have from people. And it basically all came down to, yeah, you morons tried that in New Hampshire. How'd that work out? And I'm like, that's a state, bro. Like a city's a little, if you aim, and here's my point. I think the Free State Project, and I talked to Reed about it. He told me it's a loser brigade that's not getting anywhere. But my point on it was that they aimed too high, and so my thinking is a city would work. Now, I bring that up to come to this. If that was possible, and I believe that is actually possible, in fact, to the point that I'm willing to cede some operational money to give it a go, because whatever, you know what I mean? Let's give it a try. Shit, I lost my train of thought. Anyway, talk for a minute while I remember.
Dude, I'm so for this. I actually I started a GoFundMe that went nowhere because I found a town like in the middle of Arizona or something that was for sale, and I was
There's like 3 in Arizona that are for sale.
Right. I'm like, I'm 100.
It didn't go anywhere because it's in Arizona.
I mean, Arizona. Yeah. Arizona has some cool people and some cool laws.
It does. I actually
and Adam
found...
Kokesh. So
True. And Adam is just boss. Like, I've met Adam several times, and he's just such a cool dude. Like, but I found a property in Kentucky. I found a property in Kentucky. It's 8,000 acres, and I did the math on it. You could easily have 10,000 people on 8,000 acres and still have like parks and stuff and grow food. And you know what I mean? You could have literally a city without any issue, as long as, but basically it always comes down to everyone's all like, oh yeah, well, you're going to wind up with the government. And I'm like, oh, terrible. But if it comes out, if it worked out where you had the individual, I guess I look at it that more freedom's better. So no matter how you go about getting that, like, well, okay, not no matter, but so I completely lost where I was going with it. I had a specific question, but it's gone. So maybe next time, I don't know. Anyway, we just got a little bit of time left before you have to go. So I don't know, man. What's driving you these days? What's interesting you the most, and where do you want to put your efforts? And because you still reluctantly apparently are a libertarian, then
sometimes
where are you putting your efforts?
So first, I want to just quickly tack on to that last point you made, because I think just to quote Carrie Wedler real quick. It is a great endorsement for anarchy that the biggest problem with it is that it might devolve back into some form of government.
Oh, yeah. Carrie's awesome.
Fucking great.
That might happen. Uh-oh.
Oh, no. We might end up with something similar to what we have. Might. Yeah, and that's the worst possible scenario, is that government comes back. But yeah, I am still libertarian. I sit on the New York State Libertarian Party State Committee. I am also the deputy campaign manager for Stacey Pressman for mayor of New York City. That is where the majority of my time is going right now. But
Andrew Yang's going to be the mayor, right?
No, not likely.
No? Okay.
I would actually put some money on. No, I'm like, yeah, there's no chance that he beats Eric Adams in a Democratic primary.
Okay.
I just don't see it. I don't necessarily see us beating Eric Adams in a general election either, but what I do see is us getting a number that really changes the outlook of statewide politics for forever, because New York has such a weird dichotomy of like all the Republicans up here and all the Democrats down here. The Democrats control everything because they have so much of the city. If like we literally only need to get like 7 or 8% of the mayoral election, and then carry that over into the gubernatorial election to flip it to a Republican governor in 2022, if we so choose.
Really?
Or to a Libertarian governor if in that time frame we convince upstate that that we have a better chance at getting a Libertarian elected statewide than we do a Republican, because the New York State Republican Party is a joke. And, you know, Larry Sharpe is...
Are they even Republicans, really?
No.
Okay.
No. Well, so upstate they are.
Democrat light.
So it depends on if we're talking about the politicians or the voters, because the voters.
I meant the politicians, because I heard this hilarious term out of someone out of LA where they said, "Yeah, we have Republicans in California, but they're like diet Republicans," and it made me just laugh hysterically, because it's like, you know, they're Republican light. They're whatever. So that's what you guys have as politicians up there in New York, right?
Especially the ones in the city, like the Staten Island and like South Bronx or South Brooklyn Republicans. They're Democrats. When you get to like where I'm from, upstate, like north of Syracuse, like you're talking about pickup truck driving, farm, like a lot of the elected,
like legit.
Yeah, like a lot of our like state legislators own farms and are, you know, like pretty fucking redneck style, like almost Thomas Massey, like not
like Thomas Massey,
not politically like Thomas Massey. Like, unfortunately, they don't vote his way, but they have his kind of style and personality. I've met a couple of our like assemblymen and senators that are just like super normal farm bros.
If we had 450 Thomas Masseys, we wouldn't even be having this conversation, because we'd be too busy out like stacking Bitcoin or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, well, hell, we wouldn't need Bitcoin if that was what's going on. But
yeah, the dollar would still have value.
Yeah, that's man. I'm watching all this stuff, and all these people. Like, here's the thing that just drives me insane: is all these people on social media like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get $2,800 or whatever. If they have kids, they get more. I don't, you know, whatever. And I'm like, you people are dumb. This is okay. So, 3 different. Well, actually, I think there's been like 5 different technical COVID bills, but or at least tied with other bills. It's all this crap. It's hard to keep track anymore. But it's to the tune of something like $6 trillion. And I know that as a libertarian, you pay attention to economic policies and stuff, right? Obviously, you have to. I don't think that people realize that it essentially costs. I mean, their debt now for this is about 40 grand, roughly. I mean, you know, but you're looking at a situation where you got, let's say you fully qualified, you're one of them. They got the 1,200, then the 600, and now you'll get the 1,400. That's what, $3,200, and you owe 40 grand. There are payday loan companies that would love to get that kind of mess out of you. You know what I mean?
I used to work for them.
You worked for a payday loan company? Terrible libertarian. No, just kidding. It makes more sense than not.
I worked for a small business loan broker, so it was like a little bit more ethical. You know, these are like
a little bit more ethical, a little bit.
You know, I only worked with business owners who, you know, were not taking on like personal collateral with these loans. You know, so we weren't like going to people's houses and breaking their legs or none of that shit.
Right.
Or any of that.
Well,
kind
I mean,
of shit.
you're in New York. Who knows?
I definitely have interacted with some people who used to be like that and found this as a more legitimate avenue to make the same kind of money. But yeah, what actually got passed is ridiculous. I will say that I will cash that check.
Well, of course, man. Money. I tell people, I tell everyone I talk to when they say, well, I don't know about this because you're always saying like this stimulus money is retarded. And I'm like, no. They send it to you. Use it. But don't buy a flat screen.
Go buy Dogecoin.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I actually do own some Dogecoin, full disclosure. But yeah, for real, dude. Like,
Like invest,
yeah.
do something that's going to better your future. Don't just be like, whatever. Okay. We're running out of time. I know you have to go soon. I have a fun question. I wish I would have thought to ask Reed. Maybe next time I will, but you're the first one of this. I need you to tell me one right-wing commentator that you really like and you think people should follow and listen to, and stop making that face because that's weird. I'm just kidding. And then one left-wing.
Okay. Well, I definitely, after this week, I am loving Tucker Carlson a little bit more because
with this war with the Pentagon.
Based. Yeah. Like, oh my God. Did you see the video of him saying, like, if they treat us like terrorists, then I guess we'll be okay because 20 years later the Taliban is still around?
That is
I was like, oh my fucking God. So Tucker Carlson.
Not only that, he goes on to say they'll give us money.
Oh my God, such a based week for Tucker Carlson. So he's on my thumbs up list for sure.
Okay.
Left wing. My favorite left wing commentator.
It doesn't have to be mainstream media, just anyone.
My favorite left wing commentator would probably be Jimmy Dore.
Jimmy Dore. I like Jimmy Dore.
Yeah, with Kim Iverson coming in probably a close second.
Yeah, I really like Kim Iverson. I didn't even know who she was until she was on Reed's show. And now I'm like, oh, this girl's based. She knows what's up.
Yeah, we definitely.
I mean, she's economically psychotic, but
yeah, correct identification of problems and correct identification of solutions is how I see Kim Iverson. But I have a lot of respect for her. I got to know her brand through the Tulsi Gabbard campaign, and actually got connected with a bunch of like really cool left-wing alternative media. I didn't really understand alternative media that existed until Tulsi Gabbard's campaign and watching like Jimmy Dore.
Really? You're like 22. What's going on?
I lived under a rock when it came to like the political stuff.
Oh, I forgot. You did say you were homeschooled. So you were the kid with the goldfish that just walked around the neighborhood.
I mean, like, I listened to Joe Rogan and like I was kind of aware of like what podcasting was, but I didn't. So like I knew that alternative media existed. I just didn't realize how important it was and how necessary it was in my day-to-day life. And
it's so much bigger than mainstream media now. It's so much bigger.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's great.
Okay, I know we're coming up on your hard line. I actually agree with both of your things. I probably wouldn't have picked Tucker Carlson. But I love Tucker. I think Tucker is just really good at what he does, and I like that he's just really picking a fight with everybody these days. I dig that. He used to pick fights with Trump. People seem to forget that he would pick a fight with Trump. He didn't care. You know what I mean? I always liked how based he was. Like, hey, this is a problem. Let's talk about it. So. And I totally spaced. I did a little research, and I even knew you worked for Tulsi's campaign. And I was going to bring that up. We were going to talk about that, and we're just running short on time now. Maybe if you'll come back on the show, we'll talk. Because I would like to know more about that. Tulsi was one that I personally supported. Not completely, but there were. Man, we got to get out of these wars. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I was with her on that. And I think she was honest about that situation. So we'll just go ahead and close out. Tell people where to find you, what you're up to. What are you doing? You got any like big stuff coming up? You got some merch you can sell them or whatever? Do you got one of those little golden microphones people can buy? And if not, you should probably work on that.
I should. We're
gonna call it the fight mic from now on. I like it.
Damn. I'm gonna have to actually run with that because that's You're like the fourth or fifth person to comment on the microphone, and I didn't even really think about it that much when I bought it. And I've had it for a year. And just recently, people are talking about it, even in like Zoom meetings that I'm in. The people have mentioned it the last couple days, and I'm like, all right, maybe this is a thing.
Hey, you gotta monetize that thing. You gotta capitalize on that. You know?
All right. Yeah, we're gonna sell Mike themed merch, but we don't have that up yet.
Fight mics. That's what you do. Fight Mike T-shirt. You know, put it together, man.
All right. So that will be up on shop.fightforliberty.com pretty soon. But at the moment, you can get a couple of other shirts. One just says "Fight Me," which is
I like it.
my personal tagline that I've had since I was a kid, basically. And yeah, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Fight for Liberty and at David Fite.
All right.
Yeah.
And then, what's your YouTube, man? You got two channels. Also, I didn't know which one to link. I just linked your original one.
Okay, yeah. So we've got Fight for Liberty. That's got a bunch of stuff. We're just now launching Fight and Friends, which is with me and Reed and our friends Stacia and Jeremy. Todd are all kind of co-hosts on that. So that's going to be Monday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern going forward. But all the other random scattered interviews and such are on Fight for Liberty. And I'm actually, the reason I have a hard line tonight is to interview Karen Ann Harlos. So that'll be
up nice
tomorrow.
Man. Look forward to that then.
I am super stoked about this. I have been following her since I joined the party and have always kind of liked her brand. So that's going to be a fun time.
All right, man. Well, I'm going to let you get to it then so you can get set up for that. Man, I really appreciate you coming on. I hope we can
Thanks for having me, man.
Sometime, man.
Yeah, I'd love to come back. This was great.
All right, man. You have a good one, bud.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.